Hi and welcome. I just wanted to do a quick update today. I haven't posted for a while. Recently, I've been busy building the UI for the EdgeCDN-X platform. Right now, I do have a demo deployment that is running on portal.demo.edgecdn-x.com. You will be presented with a login screen. If you sign in, the authentication is OIDC based, so that means you can use any OIDC specific OIDC enabled provider. So let's say Google Auth0 Keycloak. Here I'm using Keycloak. Once you're logged in, you can create a project. I'm not going to create one, but it's fairly simple. Once you have a project ready, you can start defining your services. In this demo, I'm going to play around with my website that is hosted at tbiotech.sk. This is my sort of presentation website, which I don't really use much, but it's great for testing. So this is the test. This is the website which is configured here. This is the project. This is the service. This is how the service details look like. Well, it shows you some live updates from the kube clusters itself. You can see that the certificate is valid and the service is rolled out in Frankfurt and New York City and is also configured on the name server, so the domain name becomes resolvable. As soon as you create a new service, you will get a domain name assigned. This is automatically generated for you, and you can check it with the checker if the domain resolves just fine, and it does. As you could see, I do only have 2 cache nodes at the moment, so the IP addresses are resolved accordingly. Requests coming from US are redirected to the server that's running in New York City, and requests coming from Europe are redirected to the server that's running in Frankfurt. Additionally, you can configure host aliases. If you want, let's say, your website to be listening on a different endpoint, you can specify your own domain. You can bring basically your own domain, for instance, cdn.mysite.com. If I would create this host domain, it is required on your domain controller to set up this CNAME, which would point you to the allocated domain name. Otherwise, alternatively, you can also use zone delegation. So you can import a zone into the platform, which you can define in the zones, right? I have a zone cdn.tbiotech.sk loaded here, and it is possible to use that zone as well. So if I choose this zone, it is required to set up the NS and A records, the glue records, correctly on your domain name controller to make sure that the zone delegation is correct and you will get resolved to the correct domain name. Since this is already configured, I'm not going to do that. But if I resolve this domain, it is essentially using the same domain name system, so it resolves just fine, as I would use. That's the same way as I would use domain names which were allocated by this platform itself. If you hit the edit button, you can configure your upstream, and no changes here. You can select an S3 type of origin, or you can set it to a static one. My static is configured to tbiotech.sk, which is this website which I just showed you a couple of seconds ago. And on this page, you can select the caching tier. If you have multiple tiers defined, in my setup, there's only the SSD caching tier working, so the HDD one is not working right now, but it's here for presentation purposes. And you can specify query parameters. These query parameters will be altering the cache key. So if you have content with a query param version, or where with multiple values, you will get served a different content and it will be stored under a different key in your cache. This is something which is very WordPress specific. So a new feature here, which I've recently added. You can now define paths. So this, I'm going to update those. This is also WordPress specific. This is PP content only. This is WordPress specific as well. So that means only these requests will be forwarded to your upstream. Everything else will be just basically blocked. This is a very great way how you can filter out unnecessary bots and robots from proxying to your origin server. And alternatively, you can set up rewrites. This works as a regex, but we are not going to use those. So if I hit submit, in a couple of seconds, my ingresses will be reconfigured on all the endpoints. We might not see the update on the UI itself because the UI is refreshed every 10 seconds. So by the time the configuration is submitted, it is probably already rolled out. But essentially, if I take this domain name and go to the site settings of my site, and in theory, I should be able to use this hostname as a CDN endpoint. Here I'm using the EdgeCDN plugin, which just works fine with this system. And let me hit the save changes and validate configuration. Yeah, the configuration is correct. I got the 200 response code. Let's save the changes. And if I refresh my site, you will see that all these requests, all this content from the website is now coming from the cdn.tbiotech.sk. And since this was the first request, we ended up in a cache miss situation. So if I refresh the page again, we should see cache hits. And these are the query params which I mentioned. So the where query param is defined in our query keys. So if a request contains this query param, this will be also stored in our cache key as well. All right, that's about it about the details. Let me show you a quick demo how you can create a new service. I have a test origin prepared here, which includes some pictures of cats. Let me create a new service here. I'm gonna call it called cat demo. It will be a static upstream. The upstream URL is test origin tbiotech.sk. I will set the host header for the same. I will store it in an SSD. No query params required here, and I will use the default slash prefix. And I want it to be both enabled. So in a few seconds, the service provisioning starts. I have to say that it's gonna take a couple of minutes until the certificates are issued. This is using Let's Encrypt in the background. And this is the domain name which was generated for me. This domain name now should work. It does. So hopefully our DNS or certificate generation will succeed as well. All right, I have paused the video for a bit. It wasn't even more than a minute until I got my certificate. So it might even take a couple more seconds until the certificate is distributed to all the endpoints and configured in the engine's ingress. But if we go for the site, we see that our test origin upstream is now loaded via proxy and our connection is secure. We have a valid certificate, which was just generated a couple of minutes ago. And if we look at the network console, we can see that images are coming through, and the situation is the same since this is a new service. The content is not cached yet, but on a refresh, our content is now cached and it is being served from the cache itself. All right, that was a quick introduction. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. And if you would like to give it a try, this portal endpoint is live, and so you feel free to register, create an account, and give it a try if you like the idea. If you have any interesting projects which you think this system could work well with, feel free to reach out to me. Yes, thank you so much.